Hello and welcome back. My name is Magnus Skog. I am covering Sensys Gatso. That will be our next speaker. And with us we have Joris Lampe and Per Degerman. We will have a 30 minutes presentation. And during the presentation you can ask questions on YouTube. And then we will have 10 minutes to answer them at the end. So Joris and Per, take it away.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Good morning, everybody. My name is Joris Lampe. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of the Sensys Gatso Group. And I'm delighted to be here today to talk to you about our company and our proposition. I will be doing the presentation together with my colleague Per Degerman, who will be introducing himself later in the presentation, and he'll also take the second part of the presentation. Next slide, please. First of all, I'd like to start with a short introduction about myself. I've been with the company for a little bit more than 3 years, and I'm in group management, working together with our CEO, Ivo Munning, our CTO, Per Degerman, who recently joined, and of course, Simon Mulder, our CFO. I have an education in engineering, and I hold a Master of Science from the University of Twente. Since graduation, I've been working in several technology companies, and in those companies, I've been mainly holding commercial roles. In those companies, typically, the customers that I work with were governments or governmental related institutes buying infrastructure with long sales cycles, very similar to Sensys Gatso customers. For today, we will be covering the following agenda. I will talk to you about the company Sensys Gatso and our heritage. I will also be talking a little bit about our recently won projects, and also will dive into how we executed those projects and how they have led to the required results. In the final part of the presentation, of at least my part of the presentation, I will be taking you through some of the latest results of the company, the sizing of the market, the industry, and our long-term ambitions. This slide is talking about the heritage of a company. Our company, Sensys Gatso, is the result of the combination of two companies that joined forces in 2015. Both companies having a great set of customers, technology platform, and heritage. Gatsometer still today is well known all over the world for the invention of the world's first speed camera, with installations over more than 60 countries. Sensys has been instrumental in the Vision Zero program that was initiated in 1997 by the Swedish government. The concept of Vision Zero is being used in many countries to increase traffic safety, and Sweden is broadly recognized as a leader in that field. Overall, we have more than 250 employees all across the globe, ranging from the USA to Australia. As you can see in the graph down below, you will see that we've shown a steady growth in top-line revenue, as well as order intake, but also EBITDA. In the last year, we've been able to achieve an EBITDA doubling almost from about 7% to almost 13%. Next slide, please. In the last year, we've had a couple of great wins that are shown in this overview. I think the overview clearly shows the strength of Sensys Gatso. Firstly, it's obvious that the projects that we've won are spread all over the world. You will be seeing that we have won those contracts over 5 different continents, ranging again from North America, South America, Middle East, until the Asia Pacific region, Australia. It's obvious that Sensys Gatso has been able to offer competitive propositions, and that we've also been able to actually sign and contract those projects. You also see that the types of solutions that we've been offering are different. This means that we've been able to adapt our solution according to the specific needs of the market. With the same building block, customer-specific solutions have been created. And maybe even most importantly is that the percentage of the TRaaS revenue, and the TRaaS stands for Traffic Enforcement as a Service, which basically means the service part of the contract that is recurring in nature, is a significant part of the contract. Next slide, please. I thought it would be nice to give a bit of color to some of the projects, so I selected 3 of them. First of all is the DGS program in Australia. The second one is the Buffalo school speed zone enforcement. And the last one is the contracts in the Netherlands with respect to section control. The DGCS program, the DGS stands for Department of Justice and Community Safety in Australia. That's an in-vehicle program that is part of the Vision Zero program of the DGCS Victoria State authorities. Then they basically have two types of programs to support this program. That's first of all the fixed program, and secondly, that is the in-vehicle program. And the in-vehicle program basically stands out because it can be done anywhere, anytime. The authorities have selected over 2,000 locations where possible speed enforcement can be done, which actually contributes to the influencing the driving behavior of the traffic members, or the people who participate in traffic. Sensys Gatso had been awarded with the tender and had equipped approximately 170 vehicles of different brands with a special version of the T-Series camera mounted in the back of the vehicle. After stringent proof of concept and acceptance tests, the customer has put those fleets in operation. The second program I'd like to talk to you about is the City of Buffalo school speed zone enforcement. The statistics were showing that children were at high risk of being struck by high speeding vehicles, and it was time to take some measurements. That was acknowledged by both the people and the mayor of the City of Buffalo. After an intensive selection process with input from several stakeholders, SG was selected to implement and to run the program. In this case, that means not only supply and installation of the speed enforcement cameras, but also implementation of the back office that we have in terms of pulse auxilium. In this case, Sensys Gatso does not only operate and run implement the back office, but also operates and runs the process of ticket issuing and fine collection. We had to be very flexible here because the program is only running on days and times that the school is open. So in case of a snowstorm or a day off from teachers, the program needs to be stopped. The final case I'd like to talk to you about is the section control system in the Netherlands. And the section control system is very different in nature than a spot speed system. The section control basically measures time over distance. So a vehicle is traveling from an entry point to an exit point, and the time is measured over that given nature. And by doing so, the average speed can be measured from that vehicle. One of the main benefits of this is that the acceptance of the audience is much higher because you don't feel like you're being taken on one specific point, but you're actually being measured over a longer distance and a longer time. So that feels much more truthful to you. The customer, that is the Dutch Ministry of Justice, the Dutch Public Prosecution Office, has awarded Sensys Gatso with the supply and install of the system. But Sensys Gatso is also operating a system, which means that on a daily basis, we are handing over a set of evidence files of vehicles that have actually been speeding. The system has clear advantages. As just mentioned, the public acceptance is much higher, but even more importantly, all the cars are driving at about the same speed. So that means that traffic safety is increased dramatically. At the same time, flow of traffic is much more fluid, which increases the capacity of the road. The last huge benefit from this solution is that less pollution. By braking and accelerating, vehicles will produce more carbon emissions. Now that the traffic is traveling at more or less the same speed, this is contributing to much less pollution coming from cars and trucks. Next slide, please. In the beginning of the presentation, I showed you the overall revenue, order intake, and EBITDA figures of Sensys Gatso in the last few years. Here we will have a closer look at the order intake, which is at a rolling 12-month average. In the graph left, you can see that the increase has been 40%. At the same time, we see the percentage of TRaaS revenue in the graph in the middle. That is recurring revenue as a part of the total revenue increase. Our order book is stronger than ever before, and our TRaaS business continues to grow, leading to higher margins. Both graphs are supporting our long-term objectives, which are 1 billion Swedish crowns, out of which 600 million crowns are TRaaS revenue. We also retain our ambition to increase the profitability from 13% EBITDA margin to more than 15% in 2015. Next slide, please. This slide is showing the industry and the market sizing. We are working with a company called Markets and Markets, and they estimate the global industry at about 40 million SEK, with an average growth rate of about 10%. We operate in the traffic enforcement part of this market, and we estimate this market to be about 12.5 billion in 2025. This addressable focus market is estimated to grow annually at approximately the same rate as a total road safety market. It is our ambition to grow in the same period autonomously 60% faster than the addressable focus market to a total net sales of about 1 billion SEK. We believe we can do so because we have highly competitive solutions based on flexible hardware and scalable software. Per will talk about this in his part of the presentation. Here, I hand it over to you, Per.
Thank you very much, Joris.
Next slide, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Joris. Good presentation and good outlook. So I believe that I would like to start with introducing myself as the new CTO at Sensys Gatso. I have a background working within automotive for companies in the space of producing vehicles. I also have a very, very long background working with autonomous vehicles. I started already way back in 2003, working together with Volvo Cars when I was doing my research studies at Linköping University. But the lion's share of my professional career has been at Scania, where I worked in various positions relating to vehicle data, connectivity, but also automated vehicles. As Scania was part of Volkswagen, I was also involved in the developments of automated vehicles at Volkswagen. And then lastly, I was acting as the CTO of Einride. I stepped into that company when we were only 10 employees. And I was part of building the engineering organization from 0 to over 40 people, whereas the company was roughly 80 people. At Einride, we were building an as-a-service business as well, looking at transport and creating a transport as-a-service business, which was based on the fact that vehicles were electrified, connected, and automated, thus enabling full digitalization and an entirely new business case for transport. During my time and my career, I've also been acting pretty much representing the companies that I've been working for in various positions, both towards the European Commission and as I was appointed an industry expert on vehicle data, which was called the C8S platform. There are different stakeholders on vehicle data came together, and that included not only vehicle suppliers, but also the third-party suppliers in the vehicle industry, as well as road holders, authorities, infrastructure providers, and so forth. Vehicle data and transportation creates a big ecosystems, and it requires a multitude of different stakeholders being involved. That also led me into working in standardization. I've worked with organizations such as ISO, but also ETSI on various topics related to vehicle data and automation. And now, since 5 weeks back, I'm the CTO here at Sensys Gatso. Really looking forward to taking this company to the next step and ensuring that we are continuing to stay relevant as a traffic enforcement provider, even in the changing landscape that transportation is right now. Next slide, please. So I'm going to touch upon some of the technical details on the solutions that Joris mentioned previously. He mentioned 3 different projects, whereas the in-vehicle solution was one of them. And there Joris mentioned our installation in Australia. Here we actually have a different installation, which is from the Middle East. It's a similar system and it's built the same way. Important to note here that what we're doing is that we're building a covert solution where enforcement can actually measure traffic in motion as vehicles go along, using the technical solutions that we provide. We are one of the very few providers in the world which have this type of state-of-the-art installation. And we're also one of the biggest with over 2,000 installations worldwide of such an advanced system, which really takes traffic enforcement from the side of the road to being part of the traffic flow with a mobile traffic enforcement solution. We can go to the next slide, please. And here we're going to talk a little bit more about how we work with school zone speed enforcement. And as Joris mentioned, this needs to be highly flexible due to enforcement only being in place and enforced when the schools are actually active. It's also interesting to note that this is really an as-a-service offering that we're providing to our customers with pretty long periods and an annual recurring revenue that is generated from these installations. We take care of all of the processing of the violations. So we're really an end-to-end solution for our customers here in this as-a-service business. Looking at the numbers here, you can see that there's an average period of 4.7 years if you take all of the installations that are listed in this graph. And also you can see that the total contract value is quite significant when you come to this. And this is really on strategy in which we're going more towards an elongated as-a-service interaction with our customers. Next slide, please. For the last part, Joris mentioned the average speed, and then it's one of the things that you have to consider is that it's not enough to have a single roadside unit, but the roadside units in the network needs to work in unison, and data has to be processed by all of them in order to be able to calculate the average speed across a network. And we are providing this using the 3 product offerings that we have in our portfolio, coming from Flux, which is the roadside installation, where we have a state-of-the-art architecture which is flexible towards different hardware. You can see in the graph that it's quite easy to rotate in and out the various components for others. So it's a future-proof system. It's also a flexible system where we can deploy to different customer requirements in different regions of the world on this single platform. Then all of the sensors that are roadside based on the Flux platform are connected to our Pulse data analytics software. This is where the calculation of average speed is being done. But this is, of course, only one of the things that you can do with the Pulse platform. The Pulse can integrate with, as you see here, with our own Flux platform of sensors, but also other types of sensors, including our legacy applications with the T-Series and S-Series, but also other sensors which might be deployed around the world. So Pulse really brings together all of the data streams from all of the roadside units that are out there, and we can do advanced analytics on the data streams that goes there. One of which is, of course, including the average speed calculation over a longer set of roads. Then finally, we have Cilium, which is the back office processing software. As an event is being recorded by Flux and Pulse, it's being transferred over to the Cilium platform for further processing. Here, data can be enriched. We can ensure that plates on vehicles, for example, is read correctly. And we can also hand it over to law enforcement for a second judgment. The processing software also includes the whole chain, including sending out citations for violations to the people that should receive them. So it's really an end-to-end solution where we take care of all of the business from bringing the roadside units and processing that data and also processing the violations as they occur. So with this product offering, we can go to our customer and give them everything from end to end, bringing them a complete solution, which actually underpins our as a service offering. And that leads me into the next slide. If you could switch, please. Thank you. Here you can see that this is actually the full chain of functionality that we can bring with the combination of these three product areas. Gives us the opportunity to increase the value creation, to go towards a higher EBITDA margin by owning the data and owning the process of doing automated or semi-automated traffic enforcement as a service for our customer. Interesting part is that this is being deployed in many markets around the world. It's stated here the full service is the USA model. This is where we have this service actually being deployed at customers and are operating this. And here, as I said, we are taking care of all the operational capacity of the violation processing. So it's really an end-to-end solution where our customers just hand over this business to us, and we make sure to with high quality and high efficiency, help them with that service. Next slide, please. So how does traffic enforcement stand in the changing landscape of transportation? We all know that there are a couple of mega trends in the transport industry. We have digitalization, where we connect more vehicles, and vehicle data is readily available, both from vehicles, but also from the infrastructure around it. Then we also have electrification, which is really something that we have to do as a community in order to ensure that we can still transport ourselves around without destroying the climate or destroying the earth. And thirdly, we have the automated vehicles. And an important topic to raise, and something that I think is on many people's mind when speaking about traffic enforcement, is will traffic enforcement still be relevant when vehicles are being automated? And I would like to address this question a little bit because, I mean, the gut reaction is that if you look to the left picture here, where this person is apparently driving an automated vehicle or riding in an automated vehicle, since she can safely be asleep behind the wheel. If this vehicle violates, for example, do a speed violation or runs a red light, I don't think that it's reasonable to think that you can actually hold the person behind the wheel accountable for that. Instead, it's actually the inbuilt systems in the vehicle, which is provided by the OEMs or third-party suppliers for the OEMs, that should be held accountable. And in this situation, one must ask themselves, is it enough to bring in the OEMs as the controlling party here? Or perhaps there's still a need for having an independent, trusted party, which can be trusted to do enforcement on these types of vehicles also. But then again, will this vehicle commit crimes? Will this vehicle speed or run red lights? And I think that the answer might be yes to that question. The vehicles themselves, they stand for freedom for us as drivers. We see the vehicles that we own or that we have access to as a means for us to actually being able to take control over our own lives, not do planning, but rather just jump into the vehicle, sit down, and take us anywhere. And this also means that we have the freedom and the power of choice to which extent we follow the rules of the road. So enforcement will be necessary for the future, even in an automated, even when vehicles are being automated. But also there is a need for having a third party, such as Sensys Gatso, being trusted in the market to do this enforcement. We cannot simply trust the OEMs to do this for us, because they, in this case, their customers are the people buying the vehicles or operating the vehicles, which means that there is a conflict of interest there. That conflict of interest doesn't occur when you have a partner that solely works with traffic enforcement, such as us at Sensys Gatso. Then there's also a pretty large number of possibilities when we are speaking about digitalization. Since vehicles and infrastructure are getting more and more connected, and that vehicle data or infrastructure data is becoming readily available on standardized interfaces. This means that traffic enforcement can have new data sources. And as I mentioned before, our Pulse platform is already prepared to bring in these data streams. So as soon as data is being available, we can integrate that into our traffic enforcement system in the Pulse product, meaning that we can continue or enhance the way that we can do automated or semi-automated traffic enforcement using Pulse and Cilium as our product offering. Furthermore, the increased data will also help us to do enforcement on other applications. Right now, the main applications across the world are speeding and red light enforcement. But with the added data streams, we can also dip into other things, such as doing environmental zone enforcement, for example, where vehicles could actually in real time provide the current carbon dioxide emissions from these vehicles. So the outlook for the future, where the transport system and our vehicle utilization is changing, will still require the need for an independent, trusted third party to do enforcement. Further, the added capabilities of the digitalization of the vehicles and the infrastructure around the vehicles will add more functionalities to enforcement and enforcement in areas which are currently hard to get at. So we're looking towards the future, to this bright future, where we as a player in the enforcement business can still be very, very relevant and be a good provider for new types of services in this area. So for our next and final slide, let's just do a little bit of sum up of what we have been speaking about. And Sensys Gatso is a global technology company. We have a strong heritage, being the first in the market providing automated traffic enforcement. But we're also looking very much towards the future to ensuring that the technology offering that we have creates good business value for us today and in the future, as well as we are prepared for taking on the new opportunities that the future provides us with. We have a true global footprint. We are active in many, many markets around the world, and we're expanding into even more. And we can do that with a full solution offering. We can take our entire tool chain with all of the 3 products or a subset of it, depending on the customer use cases and requirements. We are certified. Enforcement needs to be certified, and we are trusted to do that, which means that we, as a trusted partner, will still be able to take on new challenges when the world is changing around us. The solutions that we provide, they are both scalable and flexible, as well as being tailored toward customer use cases. Markets are different. We understand that since we are a global player. We understand that requirements and also objectives with doing automated traffic enforcement varies around the world. And the technology stack that we are building, with the flexibility it includes, it allows us to do that with minimal effort. We are embracing the as-a-service market to increase our margins and to make sure that we have a deeper understanding in how our customers is actually using our products and traffic enforcement to ensure that we can develop them in the right way. Yeah, and I think that I've touched upon the last point as well. So with that, thank you very much for listening. I think that we do have a Q&A session right now, so thank you.
Thank you for two very interesting presentations. Very interesting that you touched upon autonomous vehicles and the increased connectivity. If you speculate, do you see any other area where Sensys Gatso could be of relevance in the increased connectivity and increased sensoring that will be in the future?
Yeah, I touched upon it briefly. There will be new opportunities with the data streams that we have. We also have new challenges within the transportation system. We need to look even closer towards emissions, both in terms of tailpipe emissions, but also noise emissions. Since we're getting a larger portion of electrified vehicles on the road, and especially commercial vehicles, these are silent vehicles which we actually can allow to drive in times where traditional diesel vehicles aren't allowed. But in order to do so, we need to make sure that the vehicles don't emit too much noise during these periods. So emissions is one part. Also, other types of analytics in tackling congestion is where we can step in. We have a strong and long experience of working with road-related data, since we have our sensors deployed across the world in close proximity of the roads.
Interesting. And regarding autonomous vehicles, my take is that some people will always want to drive by themselves, and therefore traffic enforcement will be needed, even if you can have it fully autonomous. What is your take on that aspect?
I fully agree, and you should also consider that going over to autonomous vehicles, it won't happen in many years. I mean, we are already seeing the first installations of autonomous vehicles. But the average age of the vehicle fleet in Europe is over 10 years. So it will take a long time before vehicles are fully automated. And when it comes to enforcement, it's really not enough to just monitor part of the vehicle fleet. You have to monitor the whole vehicle fleet, and perhaps the location of where you're doing the enforcement is more important, such as the school zones that we do in the US. And also, as I mentioned during the talk, a vehicle, even if it's automated, is sold to a person. And that person is seeing the vehicle as a freedom, and they have the power of choice to handle the vehicle and to drive the vehicle. And in some cases, it will be manually driven because the pure pleasure of it, perhaps. And in those cases, enforcement is important. And even so, I think that even in an automated vehicle, the driver will have pretty much control and can set a speed, for example, in that system.
Yes, and a question from the web. Do you have any technology looking at drivers using the cell phone?
Yes, we did a showcase a while back on distracted driving, where we showcased that it is possible using our cameras and our processing to create a neural network which can detect whether a driver has a cell phone in hand. So that has been showcased. I think that the legal situation needs to mature a bit, and perhaps we need a little bit more harmonization in different countries in order to understand how to enforce it the best way to get the effects that we're after. But yes, we do have the technology available.
Super. And also a question from the web. Regarding the investigation, maybe Joris could answer this one as well. Do you have any news or any progression?
No, there's no news there. I think it was also communicated earlier that we don't expect anything on short notice. I want to emphasize this only an investigation at this moment in time. And yeah, the Dutch authorities are doing collection information and verifying. Yeah, it will not be possible to say when we expect something to report on that.
Super. And back to Per, what do you think will be your biggest impact on Sensys Gatso? Where do you see that your competence will be relevant? Maybe where will you develop something and so on?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Looking at my background, I'm used to building high performance development teams which are software oriented. And Sensys Gatso, we are in the super good mix between having development of infrastructure such as the roadside system, but also combining that with the fact that we're building a software only solution in the Pulse and Cilium products. I think I can contribute in ensuring that we have a strong development team. And also looking back at my career history, I have always been working in the intersection between software and hardware, where software tends to be more efficient when you can be super agile, whereas when you have the hardware components, you need a little bit more structure and the cycle times are larger. So the really difficult thing here is to make sure that teams are working in unison, even if they have different time horizons. And I have a lot of experience in doing that. And I think that that could be one of my contributions. Another thing is, since I have a long history working with automated vehicles, many of the sensors that are found in automated vehicles are also the same sensors that are used in traffic enforcement. And there's a very, very quick development going on here because the requirements from automated driving really puts these sensors to full use. And we need to do some technology development. And perhaps I can help bring in those developments also in the space that we're working on.
Super. And also regarding the sensors and semiconductors overall, do you see any shortage currently in the supply or any increased prices in accordance with what Volvo reported?
Yeah, there's a global shortage of semiconductors in the world. However, that really is a major challenge when you have a very large development where you produce many units per day and per week, such as Volvo or the other OEMs. They are heavily affected by this. In our case, our manufacturing speed isn't really there. We're producing much less units, looking at the deployments around the world. So we aren't that affected, and we can still live with the stuff that we have in store. So no negative impacts as of now, due to the fact that we're simply not producing as many things as Volvo or Scania or other OEMs around the world might do.
Super. And a new question from the web, maybe back to Joris. The Costa Rica project, how is it developing?
Well, the situation is as reported recently by Ivo. We have a strong contract with the government. We had anticipated to start it last year, but due to COVID, it was postponed. We still believe it's going to take place, and our best estimate is that will be done the second half of this year. But of course, we're on top of that.
And back to Per, what would be the main focus for you during 2021?
Oh, first of all, I've just joined a beautiful company. I need to learn where we are and need to get to know all of the people. It's even harder now since we're a global company and we cannot be close. So that will take a lot of my time. But otherwise, we have some interesting tenders coming up. That is, of course, super important for me as the CTO to make sure that the technology that we develop and the roadmaps that we develop is applicable to those tenders as much as possible.
Super. And the last question, as you have been working with autonomous vehicles in the past, and everyone is asking, when is it coming, the fully autonomous vehicles? So what is your best guess there? I understand you can't have a concrete answer, but what is your best guess?
I can't have a concrete answer. Unfortunately, it depends. We are already seeing automated vehicles on the road. And when I say automated vehicles, it means level 4 on the SAE scale, meaning that you can actually take away the responsibility of the driver. And at my former employer, we deployed a fully autonomous vehicles on public roads already in 2018. And over in the US, a company called Voyage have been driving fully driverless vehicles in a specific area in Florida for a couple of years, already in commercial operations. So I think that the quick answer to this is that we are already seeing it. But I also understand that the question stems from when we drive on the road, will we see more automated vehicles than manual vehicles? And I mean, that question is very difficult to answer. But I think that for general deployment of automated vehicles, meaning level 4 and beyond, it will take at least 10 more years.
Super. Thank you a lot, Per and Joris, for an interesting presentation and good answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.